All right, welcome to today's episode of NextWaveDV's podcast. We are joined again with Tony Mata. If you haven't checked out our next episode of NextWaveDV, where we take you on a behind-the-scenes tour of a recent shoot, you definitely want to check that out. But we are going to talk today about a little bit about Tony's background on what he's done, coming from film to video, and then recently HDSLRs. So again, Tony, why don't you tell us about where you started with and some of the projects you've worked on, where you've come from?
Well, I can tell you that I started my career with SLRs, shooting film. And after a few years of shooting stills for corporate and advertising, I really wanted to migrate into motion pictures. Throughout the years, been shooting some Bolex footage, and I always had, at school, in school, I always shot some Bolex, but didn't embrace it quite yet until I got my first break. My break was given to me by a gentleman. His name is Louis Schwarzbeck. He's based out of Hollywood, and he was very, very kind as to even loan me his own film package to get started. He always believed that still photographers could make good cinematographers if properly trained, and they could find the concept of movement, camera movement, blocking, etc. So he was generous enough to lend me his camera. We started producing stock for Energy Productions, which at the time was his company. He founded, and it was been years, 10 years or so. It's just shooting 35 millimeter film. So my motion picture experience was cans of film, yeah. And I loved it. High quality, very, very, it's still to this day the top quality mode of production. But as years progressed and I started merging more into corporate work and to commercials, well, of course I had to embrace video. So it was funny because I never touched a video camera. All I've done is just working with Arri and some Panavision as well. Mm-hmm. But at first, video, well, to me always was video. Video it had this connotation of just being, you and I've talked about this before, yeah. They look like video, Yep. They didn't look like the movies. The movies looked movies because they were shot on 35 with side lenses or, Panavision lenses. But now we have these amazing tools that, you can go and buy, you can go to Walmart and buy, yeah. You can get a DSLR, snap a 35 millimeter lens, and it produces gorgeous pictures. So I think today, anybody that's starting, as well as those of us that have the experience, we're just blessed with the possibilities.
Now you shot on red too.
Yes.
What would you compare red shooting versus film, and then also versus HDSLR?
The experience of shooting with red itself, the experience itself, to me was a pain in the neck. It's just. That would require a whole podcast to talk about. But let's face it, the results out of red are gorgeous. You get a digital negative, which is what I'm accustomed to. When you have a negative, you have all the latitude you want, and you go into a transfer suite, and they do the color correcting or color grading, which is more now called. And you have incredible amounts of information that you can transfer and manipulate and shape into a beautiful, gorgeous image. Red gives you that. Does not hit each other. Yeah. It's incredible. But the experience of shooting with it, to me, I find it, tiring. I don't know. I didn't drink the red Kool-Aid, guys, so sorry about those of you that are too excited about red. Red is just another brush, okay? It's just
another tool.
It's a tool, yeah.
Right.
So there's people out there that think red is the beginning and the end of the world, but I'm sorry, it's not.
I'll see a lot of commercials that are shot that there's nothing fancy about them necessarily. It's just some bunch of people sitting around the table talking about a product, yeah, or something like that. And to me, and half the time it even ends up on standard def, on most networks. Sometimes it's in HD, but they're not, to me, that red is great. I see movies like, the upcoming Hobbit movies and the new Spider-Man reboot. They're going to be shooting on
Social
Epics.
Network.
Yep, yeah. Exactly. And they're dealing with situations, especially with like Hobbit, where they're shooting in 3D or something like that. You're dealing with situations where you want to have the detail that the red cameras can offer. You're going to be doing lots of visual effects, so you're going to be doing extreme color grading or whatever. So you have that benefit.
It's
but
4K resolution. I mean, it's just.
And then new epics with 5K and 6K and all that kind of stuff.
Do you need it? No. But
for them,
some people, they do.
Right.
But that's what I laugh at, because I have clients that say, "Oh, red is red. So what do you want?" Well, it's a video for the web.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need 4K. You know, you can do it somewhere differently. So yeah. So anyway.
And even and I was talking too, like, if you're shooting something for the web, a lot of times if you look at the the videos that pop up on YouTube and the advertisements on Hulu and stuff like that, they're dropping them down to really low resolutions. So that they stream easier, and so you're not having to sit and wait for an ad to show up. It just pops up, it runs, and then it goes away. Those are they're not even VGA; they're like QVGA. They're like really low resolution in order for it to stream quickly. And I mean, you got to decide what your medium is going to be before you have to decide. Now, granted, there's a certain sense of future proofing that happens if you shoot on a red or film or something like that.
Well, for that matter, I don't think there's necessarily future-proofing with that. If you really want to future-proof, you shoot on film.
Yeah.
I mean, but that said, I think going back to the DSLR aspect, DSLR brought to everybody the possibility of a large sensor. And you all know what that means. A large sensor, a 35 millimeter lens equals control of depth of field. And that's what makes movies look like the way they are. It's one of the things that makes them look like where they are. And not only that, the quality of the Canon sensor, and Nikon for that matter too now, it is just juicy. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And the available light that you can do. I mean, the capacity for capturing low light levels is just something that previously can only be basically on the realm of film shooters. So what's happened now is that has bridged the gap. So do you need red? Yeah, you need it if you need 4K. But if you don't need 4K, you don't need red. So therefore, you can go and shoot with another instrument. Let's also face the fact that DSLRs, as we know them today, have a lot of caveats, a lot of things, like rolling shutters, lack of time code, external audio, whatever. But the case is they produce absolutely gorgeous images. So if you want to deal with the little, a few little kinks, in the end, Hollywood is using them. I mean, that's what they're doing.
I was watching, or listening, I should say, to a podcast that was basically a little workshop, and one of the guys in it was Shane Hurlbutt. ASC, amazing cinematographer, and he was talking about how they were shooting, I think it's Act of Valor is the name of the film, and they shot it all on HDSLRs, and they would have, like, some scenes they would have 8 camera shoots going at the same time, just to go at crazy angles.
Because to them, for their budgets, they're disposable cameras.
Right. But they were able to, but the one thing that was fascinating to me is they were talking a lot about the post-production. They would have Jello Cam, and they would correct it, but there might still be like motion blur from the Jello Cam that would be burned into it. So then they would have a person go in and paint that out frame by frame. So the budget wasn't necessarily migrating to say that, HDSLRs just brought just went from $100,000 to $5. There still has to be things that you have to do. They did a ton of post-production in that film, and they're still doing it. I think the post-production they took a year on, just to do the post and correcting a lot of the issues that the HDSLRs made. The thing is, though, that they were able to capture the image in scenarios that a film camera or a traditional video camera would have not been able to.
That's the point. They're being used as stunt cameras.
Right.
So for these guys, it's not like it's cheaper, really, because in the end, it's ended up being more costlier, much more costly
for post, yeah,
to fix it.
But the HDSLRs provide them the ability to shoot in an area that would have literally been impossible otherwise, and so it's a creative tool. Again, HDSLRs are a tool, but they're a tool that a lot of people are adopting. Do you get a lot of clients that request?
Tell me about it. I'm talking about adopting. I got my first DSLR. It was a 5D. A little over a year and a half ago, and we didn't have this wildfire going that we have right now. I talked to at the time Getty, and they said, "Oh well, DSLRs they have jello cam. No, don't bother. We're shooting on red now, or film." And I thought, okay, well, whatever. Now they're shooting most of the footage is coming from DSLRs and some red.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here with clients, it's like at first people would look at me funny. It's like, why are you kidding me? I'm not going to be cut dead holding a little camera on this big shoot. We have like a 10-ton truck over there. We have the Union, whatever. We have this whole setup, and you show up with that little camera. Now it's cool.
Yeah.
And so what I joke with all of my friends is like, it's like the days where, being seen with a giant film camera or a huge digital beta, that was the cool thing. Now it's like a brick phone. It's just like holding a brick phone because it is no longer what the shape or size of the camera anymore. It's like, I think smaller is better in general. It's more, makes more sense.
It does.
It makes more, and it makes you more, just like we proved in the last shoot, it makes you extremely capable of improvising. It's
Absolutely.
to be spontaneous, and in film it's all about that spontaneity. There's a lot of things you can't rehearse, and you can just capture in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where this little cameras excel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the AF100? Do you plan on picking one up?
I'm right now studying it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking into that, and also looking into the Sony
The
F3.
F3. Yeah.
and F3K. I'm sorry. For me, the Sony is making more sense because of the PL capability. So I can still use the PL glass. And again, it's just it depends. Anyway, I like the flexibility of having different mounts on the Panasonic. Who knows? But
Now, the F3K is going to be in the realm of a red camera, maybe a little less expensive.
a little less expensive. I think because Red claims that the camera costs $17,000.
Yeah, 17, and then you have your additional
by
stuff.
the time you're done, you're already out.
But that's just to buy. Yeah, you need to
Correct?
have your EVF, and you have to have a good monitor, and you have to have
And all the ancillary knickknacks.
Yeah.
So you're talking $40,000, $30,000 to $40,000. The Sony doesn't need anything, and that's the thing about these cameras. I mean, as opposed to having all this black magic going on, you just basically have a camera that, guess what? You put a card, you shoot your image, take the card, and go and edit. Convert the files if you need to. That's it.
Right.
And you don't have all this post-production workflow nightmare and things that could go wrong in the middle of a shoot and ice packs on the camera. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. Right? But I'm pretty much in love with the Sony system. I love Sony. I just I'm not trying to plug in anything here, but it's been proven a solid piece of equipment. And so I'm sure that Panasonic, because I was also a Panasonic user for a few years when the HVX came out. The first thing that I went to, I went to get the HVX 200, and it worked with me for about a year and a half or so. I really liked it. I like the color depth Panasonic has.
Yeah, I do like the rendition that they get just right out of the camera.
Don't you love those skin tones? I mean, it's just amazing. Just well, and let's face it, the true. How should I say, the true turning point in history when history books are written, and we talk about film and the transition into the digital revolution is the DVX 100.
Yep.
That's what turned. I mean, it's like I remember my first DVX. It's DVX, correct? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was just like amazing. It's like it looked like film. For the first time,
that's to Panasonic's credit.
Panasonic. That's the Panasonic's credit.
And that's, for me, Sony's have just they have a great image, but they didn't look as much like film as the Canon, or maybe not the Canon, the HDSLRs, of course, and then the Panasonics, like the DVX and the HVX. They had the way that they did their color spacing, the way that whatever they did, their cinegammas and stuff like that. The way they did it, it made it look like film.
Absolutely.
And Sony had a video look to it. I mean,
because Sony engineers are obsessed with resolution.
Yeah.
These guys come from the realm of shoulder cams, and everything's meters and vectorscope, whatever, and that's what they see. They're engineers, and somehow Panasonic did the research, and they had some more right brain individuals in the team that were able to produce absolutely gorgeous pictures. Now I think Sony has turned their corner, but
I mean, you shoot on EX1 still, like.
Oh, I still shoot all the time. I like this again. I like to slap a couple of Pro Mists in there just to make it less sharp because it's so sharp, But again, a lot of times I don't because post production, you can control that.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like it as a solid camera piece, and I shoot it with the PS Technique.
Okay. Yeah, that's a depth of field adapter.
Yeah,
and
it works pretty well for me. It's just one more.
Now we talked with Aaron Randerson in our first podcast. Works with Tony a lot for post production, and one thing we talked about in there was trying to mix depth of field adapter footage with HDSLR or even RAW camera footage, and how it's depth of field adapters typically have a lot less sharp of an image, and so it's really hard because HDSLRs are natively sharp because they don't have that ground glass to go through. Have you ever tried combining the two with success?
I've combined the three with success. We shot a video for a group called Barlow Girl. It was directed by Michael Seibel, and he was very intrigued by the DSLR look. And so there were parts that we really require the sharpness. And so basically for the green screen work, and there were parts that we wanted the cinematic feel. And we combined the two, and in the end, it looks pretty good. I remember having to put like quarter Pro Mists in front of the lens to balance things out.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, they intercut just fine. Of course, you have to have a good colorist to do that, and Aaron is just great. You'll get to meet him, the guy. He's pretty cool.
Yeah. And now you guys, the primary distribution of that was online and DVD.
Yeah.
So you're not dealing necessarily with the
projection or big screen.
Right, and so you're not going to notice the difference. So even online distribution via YouTube or Vimeo, typically you never see it pixel for pixel 1080p.
Yeah, but you gotta see it in his suite and his edit suite with his large
30-inch ones.
It looks gorgeous.
Does it?
Yeah, you can tell. You can't tell where the footage was.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I remember it was one of the first large shoots that I had with the 5D. And one thing I like to warn you guys is the 5D, has a larger sensor than a normal 35 motion picture camera. That's where the 7D comes into play. The 7D, by virtue of the size, smaller sensor, which is almost like Super 35.
Mm-hmm.
So anything they put in there will be exactly what you're accustomed to do in film. But the 5D is more like, it feels like a 60 millimeter camera. It's like amazing. I mean, the paper thin depth of field. So the director goes for a move where there's a lady crying there in the middle of an empty movie theater, and we're pushing, slowly. And then the focus puller had the hardest time because every move you have to be fishing for focus,
Yep.
And we start closing the lens, so you have to start playing with your aperture, of course. But then you have low light. So luckily, by then we have done our tests and we knew exactly how far to go with the ISO before starting getting any grain, and we did perfectly. We did well, but
what do you usually shoot?
We would have done better. Like, I think Aaron wasn't too happy, but we would have done better if we had closed a little more.
What do you consider safe for ISO shooting, personally?
My test at night, I basically went as far as 2500 ISO.
Okay.
And then we found that the noise starts to appear in the mid grays faster. And so what I did is I reproduced, it was a nighttime scene, it was going to be raining, and which by the grace of God it did on the day of the shoot. But anyway, we're shooting the tests a week before, and it was all lit by the street lights, the neon, the windows, the cars passing by. I don't think we used a single lamp. We probably used a Kino. But that was it. And so I reproduced the test that way, and I started all kinds of combinations of, apertures and ISO, and start reducing, the settings. At the time, I liked the settings at 0 because I wanted to give some amount of and I'm talking about color here. I wanted to give a little extra color right out of the camera.
Right.
And so at the time, basically when I did the test, I was able to go as far as 2500 ISO, and we projected that image. Well, we looked at it on the large 50-inch screen. Nothing. It was clean. Absolutely, I was like blown. Away with it.
Yeah.
This was about over a year ago. But after that, then you can start discerning some noise.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, on the grays, middle grays. So if your tolerance is okay, then you can go past that. But we wanted to have a squeaky clean image, and so that's kind of how ever since I just have in my mind that I can go up to 2500. And I don't know
Usually,
how any, you know what that means in film terms? That's insane. It's awesome, you guys. It's like I can I can begin to tell you. But anyway,
I say typically the way that the internet, the articles say is like you're clean up to 16, but I've heard a couple people say they've pushed it past 16 and gotten good results, so that's good to hear. Now, have you also heard
that
about...
is, remember, cranking down the the contrast and
Yep.
and the chroma.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
I was just going to say, a lot of people, I've heard articles about shooting with daylight or in daylight color temperatures to reduce the noise because the blue channel tends to be noisier.
yeah, that's typical of a lot of digital.
Right, most digital
Yeah.
is that way.
Mm-hmm.
So then if you're shooting in daylight, you're not having to bump up. The blue channel is usually what has to bump up. So if you're shooting in tungsten, there's not enough blue channel that's being recorded, so it has to bump up on the camera. Versus if you're shooting in daylight, it's more blue light, so then you can bring the blue down essentially, and so then it's less noisy, and blue channels can save the noisiest. So just a little tip, you might want to try that out and see if it's successful for you. But we see a lot of these charts, and again, we're going back to the Sony guys. You see these charts, you see all these things, but how does the image look? If you're able to achieve that filmic look that the Canon HDSLRs provide, which is unique among cameras. It's not... I mean, I don't know what... I've heard mixed reviews on what the dynamic range is, but I've seen more dynamic range in the HDSLRs than I have in traditional video cameras.
I would say so. I think the development of the chip for Canon for their stills market, goes back years and years. And so all of a sudden they have this technology and they have applied it to now video when it hasn't been out before. And so I think the latitude is way more than to be expected in normal video cameras. I agree with that. But there's also something that I have not been able to define in terms, so I'm going to sound a little funny here, but it's just, it's got a creamy look of sorts. It's got a filmic, pictorial, it's beautiful, hard to describe, and it just comes from that sensor, from the Canon.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
do you agree?
Oh, no, I know what you mean.
It just looks
It
filmic.
looks good, and that's...
Looks filmic, and
Wow.
guess what? You can buy one of those things. That's crazy. You don't have to be spending gazillion dollars on the film transfer. Well, I just wanted to close by saying to encourage everybody that's watching that now more than ever we have the opportunity to have our hands in tools that are capable of producing beautiful images. So I really would like to encourage everybody, go out there and make a movie, but don't forget that the camera alone makes the picture. It's your eye and your interpretation of the scene and the story I want to tell. So educate yourselves visually. Look at the work that master cinematographers are doing and how they did it, and then go out and do it. Try to emulate that. So I would say constant education is key, not just the availability of tools. It's just something that I really try to make emphasis on. So have fun and make a movie.
Yeah. And we talked about before that the production is only one key to a great film.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have good talent and you need to have good script. And
Good
so
script's key.
surround yourself with people that are able to do that. I can come up with ideas, but I'm not the best script writer. And I've talked about this before. That I try to find people. If I see somebody that has a great concept and they're able to write a great script, I try to work with that person. I try to grab a hold of them and find it. Now, there's a ton of scriptwriters out there that are trying to get their stuff produced. So that's where that's where connecting yourself with that person and trying to come up with something can always lead to something great.
Absolutely, and that's what's the beauty about this. It's a collaborative sport.
Yeah.
That's how we met. That's how we met
Exactly.
all the
And
people that we work with. There's crews from all over the place.
HDSLRs are kind of forcing people back into that too.
Yeah.
Because you can't just go. I mean, you can go out and grab a camera, but it's going to be fairly locked off. If and again, if you watch the episode that we did, NextWaveDV, where we talked about the shoot that we had happen behind us, you will see there is a crew. There was, you had your AC that was pulling focus for you. You had
dolly.
Yeah, gaffers
grip,
and everybody was, and then I was running a second camera, so being able to have an additional angle to cover and stuff like that. So having a crew is necessary to pull off really great looking stuff. And then again, for the talent, and then the crew that was there, we had makeup artists, we had wardrobe, we had people that were just taking care of each individual small thing. People don't always look the greatest right off the bat, so you put makeup on them to make them look much better on film. And sometimes lighting, you might be like, why the heck can I get the light to look the way it does in film? Well, a lot of that is set design and makeup. You come in with lighting and you're able to light what is already given to you by a great set designer.
Many times it's not showing.
Yes.
With the lighting, trying to be able to obscure certain things. It's not always about putting the light in there, but it's how to subtract it.
Exactly. So surround yourself with great people and make it a community event, because that's really what great films are all about.
Absolutely.
So Tony, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
And we'll definitely have you back for some more training, some more tips, and some more experience.
Excellent.
So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.